An elderly black woman faced a smug judge's fine over a petty ticket, only to reveal she's a Harvard law legend. What started as a courtroom jab exploded into a fight against corruption, with her ex-students unmasking bribes and power plays. Threats flew, but their evidence toppled a crooked empire, sparking reform. Justice won, yet the battle's just begun. This is her story of grit and a system on trial. Watch it unfold. The Philadelphia County Courthouse loomed over Market Street, its gray stone facade etched with decades of city grime, a stern sentinel amid the honk of taxis and the shuffle of SEPTA buses. Inside Courtroom 7, the air was a stew of muggy September heat and the stale tang of old varnish, clinging to the wooden benches and the high coffered ceiling. The gallery was half filled with a motley crew of stragglers, a handful of reporters tapping phones, and a gray-haired clerk dozing over his ledger, the room buzzing with the low drone of routine. Overhead, fluorescent lights flickered, casting jagged shadows on the scuffed linoleum floor. Evelyn Brooks, 78, stood before the bench, her silver hair swept into a tight bun, her dark eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. Her gray dress hung loose on her frail frame, its hem frayed from years of quiet wear. But her posture was unyielding, spine straight, hands clasped over a faded leather purse that had seen her through Harvard's halls. She'd come for a petty fight. A $75 parking ticket she swore was wrong, slapped on her ancient Buick for a spot she hadn't taken. Now, she faced Judge Victor Crane, a man who'd turned this room into his fiefdom. Crane, 55, sprawled on the bench, his black robe stretched tight over a barrel chest puffed with years of unchecked power. His bald head gleamed under the lights, a sheen of sweat catching the flicker, and his thin lips curled into a smirk that had crushed 1,000 pleas. He shuffled the docket with thick fingers, barely glancing at Evelyn as he barked, "Brooks, Evelyn, unpaid parking ticket, $75 fine. You got anything to say? Or we done here?" His voice boomed, a gravelly thunder rolling over the room, laced with the impatience of a man who'd heard it all, or thought he had. Evelyn tilted her head, her voice soft but steady, the kind that once silenced a lecture hall of restless students. "Your Honor, that ticket is a mistake. I wasn't parked on 12th Street that day. I have receipts from a diner 2 blocks over, time-stamped 2:17 p.m., and a witness who saw my car at the lot on Chestnut. I'd like it dismissed." She paused, letting the words settle, her tone measured but firm, a professor laying out a case. The gallery shifted. A reporter in a rumpled blazer perked up. A woman in a red scarf whispered, "She's got proof," but Crane didn't blink. He snorted, a sharp dismissive sound that bounced off the walls, leaning forward with that smirk widening into a leer. "Receipts? Ma'am, I've heard every sob story from here to the Schuylkill. You think I'm running the charity court? Pay the fine, $75 plus $25 late fee now, since you're wasting my time." He waved a hand, thick and dismissive, like swatting a gnat, his pen already scratching the next line on his docket. "Next case, move it along." The gallery murmured, a low ripple of unease, a man in a Phillies cap muttering, "That's cold." But Evelyn didn't budge. She straightened further, her frail frame seeming to grow, a quiet storm brewing in her stillness. She opened her purse with deliberate calm, fingers steady despite the years, and pulled out a worn Harvard Law ID, crisp photo from decades past, gold lettering bold, Evelyn J. Brooks, Professor Emeritus. "I'm no stranger to courtrooms, Judge Crane," she said, her voice rising now, clear as a bell across the room. "I taught law at Harvard for 33 years, tenured, wrote the book on civil procedure. You might have skimmed once. I know a mistake when I see one, and you're making a big one right here." The room locked up. Crane's pen froze mid-scrawl, ink bleeding into the page, his smirk twitching into a grimace as he squinted at the ID now held by the bailiff, a lanky kid who'd shuffled forward, wide-eyed, clutching it like a live wire. The gallery detonated, gasps sharp as gunshots, a reporter's "no way" cutting through, The clerk, jolting awake with a snort, his ledger sliding to the floor. Crane's face flushed a deep red, a vein throbbing at his temple, his bald scalp shining brighter under the lights. "What's this nonsense?" he snapped, voice cracking at the edges. A bully caught off guard. "You think a fancy card changes facts? Sit down, lady. I don't care where you taught." Evelyn's gaze didn't flinch, dark eyes boring into him like a professor facing a flailing student. "Facts? You've ignored mine. Receipts from Pat's Diner, 2:17 p.m., 2 blocks from your violation. A witness, Mr. Henry Cole, who saw my Buick parked on Chestnut at 2:30. I'm not here to pay, I'm here for justice. And you don't get to fine me for your arrogance." She set the receipts on the table. A diner slip coffee stained but clear, and a handwritten note from Cole, notarized, her tone steady but rising. A lecture hall command in a courtroom cage. "You're the one out of line, Your Honor." The gallery buzzed louder. A woman clapped, quick and sharp, the reporter in the blazer scribbling furiously. "She's got him pinned!" Crane banged his gavel, hard enough to rattle the bench, the crack splitting the noise. "Order! You're out of line, lady, professor or not. I run this court, not you." His voice boomed, but it trembled now, his eyes darting to the ID again, then the receipts, then the gallery's growing swell. The bailiff stood frozen, ID still in hand, and the clerk fumbled to retrieve his ledger, glasses fogging. Crane's empire teetered, and Evelyn sat, purse closed, calm as a storm's eye, a retired titan who'd just fired her first shot. The Philadelphia County Courthouse thrummed with a restless pulse. Courtroom 7, a cauldron of muggy heat and raw tension, as Evelyn Brooks's words hung like smoke after a gunshot. The gallery was a restless sea reporters hunched over notebooks, their pens scratching like cicadas. A woman in a red scarf whispering, "She's a legend, I swear," to a man beside her clutching a crumpled septipass. The gray-haired clerk, still rattled from his doze, fumbled his ledger, pages fluttering to the floor, his glasses fogging as he bent to retrieve them. The bailiff, a lanky kid with a buzz cut, stood frozen near the bench, Evelyn's Harvard Law ID trembling in his hands, its gold lettering catching the flickering fluorescent light. At 78, Evelyn sat poised, her gray dress a quiet armor, her faded leather purse a silent witness to decades of battles. This one, over a $75 parking ticket now spiraling into something far bigger. Judge Victor Crane gripped the edge of his bench, his bald head slick with a sheen of sweat that glistened under the harsh lights, his once smug smirk twisting into a scowl that pulled his thin lips tight. A vein throbbed at his temple, thick and pulsing, as he snatched the ID from the bailiff's grasp, his thick fingers smudging the edges. He squinted at it. Evelyn J. Brooks, Professor Emeritus, then flung it back onto the table with a flick of his wrist, the plastic slapping against the wood beside her neatly stacked receipts. "This don't mean squat," he barked, his voice a gravelly roar that rolled over the room, cracking at the edges with a tremor he couldn't hide. "You taught law? Good for you, lady, write a memoir. Don't change the fine $100 now, and I'm tacking on contempt if you keep running your mouth." His eyes darted to the gallery, then back to Evelyn, a bully sensing the room tilt. Evelyn didn't blink. She rose again, slow and deliberate, her frail frame unfolding with a dignity that filled the space, her voice cutting through the din like a blade through silk, honed by years in Harvard's lecture halls. "Contempt? For speaking truth? I taught judges better than this, taught them evidence matters, procedure matters, justice matters." She tapped the diner receipt, 2:17 p.m. Pat's Diner, coffee stained, but legible, and slid the notarized note from Henry Cole beside it, her dark eyes boring into Crane with a professor's unyielding calm. "You've got my receipts, my witness a car parked 2 blocks from your violation. I've cited Rule 12 of your own court code. Erroneous fines must be reviewed. Dismiss this, or explain why you won't, on record." The gallery detonated claps, bursting like firecrackers, a sharp "Yes, sir," ringing from a man in the back row, The reporter in the rumpled blazer muttering, "He's cooked," as his pen flew across the page. A woman in a floral blouse stood, fists clenched, shouting, "She's right!" before the bailiff waved her down. Crane's gavel slammed, 3 furious cracks that rattled the bench and sent a pencil skittering to the floor. "Order! Order, damn it!" he bellowed, his face flushing a deep purple, sweat beading on his brow. "You're done, lady, I say. What's evidence here, not you? Bailiff, escort her out now." The kid hesitated, his sneakers squeaking on the linoleum, as he glanced at Evelyn, then Crane, caught in a tug-of-war he didn't sign up for. The gallery surged. A man in a Phillies cap leaped up, roaring, "Let her talk, you ass!" And the room teetered on chaos, voices overlapping, a reporter's phone clattering as he fumbled to record. Crane's fist pounded the bench, his voice booming but fraying. "Sit down, all of you, or you're all out. I've run this court 20 years, and some old professor ain't turning it upside down." His eyes locked on Evelyn, wild now, his smirk a distant memory. "You think you're smart? You're a blip nothin'." He scribbled the fine $100 scrawled bold on the docket, his pen shaking as he waved the next case forward. "Move it along, now!" Evelyn sat, calm as stone, her purse clasped in her lap, but her gaze burned with a promise. "You'll regret that," she said, soft but clear, a warning that landed like a pebble in still water, rippling outward. Crane sneered, leaning forward, his breath heavy. "Regret? I've crushed bigger than you, Lady Harvard or not. Pay up and get out." The gallery hissed. A woman muttered, "Bastard!" And the bailiff finally stepped back, unsure, as the clerk stammered, "Next case, docket 19. Docket." The session staggered to a close, the room emptying into the hall's clamor, reporters darting for phones, their voices a tangle of, "Did you see that?" And, "She took him apart." Evelyn stepped out, the muggy, Philly air hitting her like a wall, Market Street alive with the clatter of buses and the distant wail of a siren. She adjusted her glasses, breathing slow, when a woman approached. 40s, sleek black suit, her brown eyes bright with recognition. "Professor Brooks? Tara Miles, your con law class, 98. I was in there. He's a fool and worse." Evelyn turned, a faint smile breaking her calm. "Tara, good to see you too. He's not just a fool, he's dirty. I felt it." Tara nodded, fierce, her heels clicking on the pavement. "I'm with the DA's office now, white-collar unit. Heard rumors for years. Crane's got hands in pockets, developers, cops. You pushing this?" Evelyn's eyes glinted, sharp as ever. "If I can find another voice, maybe Daniel Kim? He was 99, tough as nails." Tara grinned, pulling her phone. "Dan's a federal judge now, Eastern District. I'll call him. We'll talk tonight." They parted, Tara vanishing into the crowd, Evelyn's steps steady on the cracked sidewalk, her purse swinging lightly. The city pulsed around her horns, blaring. A pretzel vendor shouting. But her mind was already turning. A professor mapping a syllabus. Crane thought he'd won a skirmish, find her into silence. She was planning a war, and her students were her army. The docket might say $100, but the real cost was coming for him. Evelyn Brooks stepped off the SEPTA bus near her West Philly row house, the air still muggy, heavy with the mingled scents of exhaust, soft pretzels, and the faint tang of the Schuylkill River a mile off. At 78, her legs ached from the day's stand in courtroom 7, but her mind raced, replaying Judge Victor Crane's purple-faced rant, $100 now, his gavel's furious cracks, the gallery's swell of gasps and shouts. She'd turned a $75 parking ticket into a public wound, her Harvard Law ID a blade that had sliced through Crane's smug armor. Now, as she climbed the stoop's worn steps, her faded leather purse swung lightly. Holding more than receipts, it cradled a mission. Inside, the house welcomed her with the warm smell of lemon polish and the musty weight of old books. Shelves lined the narrow living room, sagging under legal tomes, constitutional law, civil procedure, and framed photos. Evelyn at Harvard, gowned and mid-lecture, her dark eyes commanding a sea of students. Evelyn, with grinning graduates, her silver hair already creeping in. She eased into a threadbare armchair, set her purse on the scratched oak table, and poured tea, Earl Grey, strong, steaming in a chipped mug. The ritual steadied her as she dialed Tara Miles, the line clicking after one ring. Tara's voice came crisp, urgent. "Professor, Dan is in. Caught him post-hearing. Meeting tonight, 8 p.m., my place in Rittenhouse Square. Bring everything, notes, gut, all of it." Evelyn sipped her tea, the heat curling through her. "Good. I have scraps, receipts, instincts. Crane is not just arrogant, Tara. He is hiding a swamp. I'll be there." She hung up, her gaze drifting to a photo. Her with Tara and Dan, 98 and 99 grads, young and fierce. They'd been her stars. Now they'd be her soldiers. By 8, Evelyn sat in Tara's sleek Rittenhouse apartment, a ninth-floor perch of glass and hardwood, the city's twinkling sprawl stretching beyond floor-to-ceiling windows. Tara, 48, paced in her DA suit, black blazer, pencil skirt. Her brown eyes blazing. A laptop open on the granite counter with files spilling across the screen. Rumors, whispers half-formed leads about Crane. Daniel Kim, 47, lounged in an armchair, his federal judge robes swapped for faded jeans and a gray sweater. His black hair streaked gray, his calm masking a mind that cut like a scalpel. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, a faint smile tugging his lips. "Professor, you smoked him today, Harvard ID drop, pure gold. Tara says he is dirty, how deep we talking?" Evelyn set her tea on a coaster, the mug's steam curling in the cool air. "Deep enough to drown in, Dan. That fine wasn't random. He is too quick to punish, too sure he is untouchable. I've seen it before. Judges covering tracks with bravado. Look at his rulings. Developers win big. Fines crush the powerless. Tenants, shopkeepers, folks like me with a ticket. Patterns don't lie." She tapped her purse, pulling a notepad, scribbled dates, case numbers from memory. "He is not just a bully. He is a cog in something greasy." Tara stopped pacing, leaning on the counter, her nails clicking the granite. "I have smoked tip last year from a snitch in property records. Crane met a real estate guy, big player, cash changed hands in a bar off Broad. No hard proof, just whispers, case got buried. You're the spark, Professor. This could blow it open." When she flipped her laptop, showing a grainy photo, Crane, blurry with a suit in a dim booth. "Recognize the vibe?" Dan's eyes narrowed, studying it. Eastern District chatter backs it. Crane has a clerk, Paul Ellis, twitchy guy, mid-30s. Word is he is scared, knows too much. Plus, Crane's docket is a gold mine, hundreds of cases, skewed as hell. Fines, triple state average. Dismissals favor the connected. We dig. We'll find the dirt. He cracked his knuckles, a judge ready to swing. "Ellis is our wedge. Pressure him. He'll crack." Evelyn's eyes glinted, sharp as ever. "Then we dig. Start with Ellis. Lean hard. I'll pull strings. Harvard alumni, Philly bar, old guard. Crane is not just finding me. He has fined a system, and I have the voice to call it." She sipped her tea, cool now, her mind racing. "He is sloppy. Today proved it. We have the law on our side." The night stretched, tea forgotten, laptops glowing in the dim room. Tara pulled court records, Crane's fines spiking on small fries, odd dismissals for fat cats. A developer's zoning case waved through despite violations. Dan sketched a plan on a legal pad, his handwriting tight. "I'll nudge judicial oversight, quietly, off record. Tara, you chase the money, bank trails, snitches. Professor, you're the face. Hit in public. Op-ed, Inquirer, maybe TV. Retired Professor Fined, questions court. Stir the pot, see who flinches." Tara grinned, fierce, tapping a file. "Ellis, he is our in. Clerk on that buried bribery case, initials all over it. Nervous as hell. Saw him last month, sweating in the hall. If he cracks, Crane is naked." Evelyn nodded, slow. "Smart. But watch yourselves, he'll threaten back. I felt his panic today. He is cornered, not dumb. This isn't a ticket anymore, it is his empire. Dan's jaw tightened, his calm hardening. Let him try, I have a bench too, and mine is federal. He wants a fight, he'll get one. Tara poured coffee, black and steaming, handing mugs around. I have DA pull, subpoenas if we need them. We're a tripod, lean on each other. He falls. They worked past midnight, the city's hum, a faint pulse beyond the glass. Tara dug deeper. Crane's rulings cross-referenced with property deals. A $50,000 fine on a bodega owner flipped to a developer's gain. Dan mapped Ellis's weak spots: divorce, debt, a kid in private school he couldn't afford. Evelyn drafted her piece, pen scratching. A $100 fine taught me this. Justice bends when judges break. The thread tightened. Ellis, the clerk, a linchpin in Crane's web. Evelyn rode home, the bus rattling through Philly's veins, lights smearing past in a blur. Crane thought he'd silenced her with a scribbled fine, a bully's flex. She'd teach him justice wasn't a docket entry. It was a reckoning, and her students were her steel. The row house welcomed her back, quiet and steady, but her pulse thrummed. This was just the start. As newsstands unfolded their wares, the Inquirer's bold headline screaming, "Retired Harvard professor fined $100. Questions, Philly court's soul." Evelyn Brooks's op-ed sat stark on page 1, her words crisp, cutting. A judge fined me for evidence he wouldn't see. I taught law 33 years. Justice isn't his to twist. By 8 a.m., the paper sold out. X erupted with hashtag Evelyn Vaz Crane, and the courthouse switchboard jammed, callers furious, curious, a few spitting threats. Evelyn sipped tea in her West Philly row house, the radio humming with a pundit's take. She's lit a match, Crane's toast if this sticks. Across town, Judge Victor Crane stormed into his chambers. The Inquirer crumpled in his fist, his bald head gleaming with sweat despite the chill. His robe hung crooked, his scowl deep as he barked at his clerk, Paul Ellis. A wiry man, mid-30s, glasses fogged, hands trembling as he stacked files. "You see this garbage?" Crane roared, slamming the paper on the desk, ink smearing. "That old bat thinks she can bury me? Me?" Ellis flinched, muttering, "It's just talk, sir." But his eyes darted to the door, a rabbit in a trap. Crane paced, his thick fingers jabbing the air. "She's got no proof, just a ticket and a big mouth. I've run this court 20 years, 20, and no professor's taking it down." He stopped, glaring at Ellis. "You hear anything? Anything you tell me, got it?" Ellis nodded fast, his Adam's apple bobbing, but his mind raced. Dan Kim's call last night. Quiet, firm. "Paul, we know you know. Meet us, or it's subpoenas." Crane didn't see the sweat beading on Ellis's neck as he slipped out, mumbling about coffee. By noon, Evelyn met Tara Miles and Dan Kim at a Rittenhouse Square diner. Vinyl booths, coffee thick as tar, the clatter of plates masking their words. Tara slid a folder across. Crane's rulings, bank stubs, a blurry photo of him with a developer, time-stamped last year. "Ellis is cracking," she said, voice low. "Met him this morning, parking lot, 10 minutes. He's got docs. Crane took $50,000 to kill a tenant case, pushed it through last spring. Scared stiff, but he'll talk if we shield him." Dan sipped coffee, his federal judge calm, masking steel. "I've got oversight moving, quiet, but they're sniffing. Crane's docket's a sewer. Fines up 300% on small fry, dismissals for big shots. Ellis is our key. Get him on record, it's over." Evelyn set her mug down, eyes sharp. "Then we push. My piece stirred it, now we prove it. Tara, draft immunity for Ellis. Dan, nudge your bench. I'll call the bar, old friends owe me." The diner door swung open, a man in a dark coat lingering too long near the window, eyes on them, then gone. Tara clocked it, jaw tight. Crane spooked, he'll hit back. "Watch your step." Evelyn nodded, unfazed. "Let him. I've faced worse than a bully with a gavel." That night, Ellis met them in a dim South Philly lot. Rain streaking his glasses, a manila envelope shaking in his hands. "This is it," he stammered, voice breaking. "Crane's deals, developers, cops, 5 years. I logged it, thought I'd need it someday." Tara took it, flipping pages, ledgers, dates. $100,000 here, $75,000 there. Crane's initials scrawled. Dan's eyes narrowed. "This buries him. State and Fed charges. You're safe, Paul. DA's got you." Ellis exhaled, shaky. "He'll kill me. He knows I'm weak." Back at Tara's, they spread the haul. Crane's empire in ink. Bribes to sway cases. Fines to squeeze the poor. A cop pal, burying complaints. Evelyn traced a line. $200,000. A condo deal. "He fined me to flex. This proves why." The phone rang, a gravelly voice. "Back off or you're done." Tara hung up, unfazed. "He's scared. We're close." The Philadelphia night deepened, rain streaking Tara Miles's Rittenhouse Square windows, as Evelyn Brooks, Tara, and Dan Kim poured over Paul Ellis's envelope. Ledgers, receipts, a corrupt judge's life in ink. The condo deal, $200,000 to Crane via a shell company, sat stark. Dated 6 months back, initials VC, scrawled bold. Evelyn traced it, her voice steady. "He's been selling justice. My $100 fine was just his flex." Tara nodded, flipping pages. 5 years, dozens of cases, developers, cops, all greased. Ellis logged it clean. Dan's jaw tightened. "This is federal. RICO. Easy. We've got him." Across town, Judge Victor Crane paced his Chestnut Hill home, a brick colonial with too many windows, his bald head slick with sweat, the crumpled Inquirer still clenched in his fist. The op-ed burned. Hashtag Evelyn Crane, trending past 1 million. TV crews camped outside the courthouse, his phone buzzing with voicemails. "Resign, Crane!" He hurled the paper, glass shattering as a tumbler hit a mirror. "That old hag!" he roared, alone but loud. His cop pal, Lieutenant Jimmy Voss, called, voice low. "Vic, they're sniffing. Ellis too. Shut it down." Crane snarled, "I'll bury them, watch." By morning, threats landed. Evelyn's row house phone rang at dawn, gravelly. "Quit, or your block burns." She hung up, unfazed, sipping tea as Tara arrived, breathless. "My car, tires slashed. Note, back off." Dan texted. "Office window smashed, feds alerted." Tara's eyes blazed. "He's desperate. Means we're close." Evelyn set her mug down. "He's a cornered dog, biting blind. We push harder." Tara met Ellis again. Delaware River waterfront, dawn fog thick, his glasses fogged with panic. "He knows," Ellis stammered, shoving a USB. "Recordings, Crane and Voss last year, rigging a drug bust. I'm dead if he finds me." Tara took it, voice firm. "You're safe. DA's moving you. Immunity's drafting." Ellis shook, rain soaking his coat. "Hurry, he's got eyes." Dan filed with judicial oversight that day. Quiet. Sealed. Crane's docket, flagged for review. Tara's DA team traced the shell company, First Philly Holdings, to a developer, Mark Brantley. Condo kingpin with a rap sheet buried by Crane. Evelyn hit the bar, calls to old profs, a judge friend in Harrisburg. Crane's rotting the bench, dig. By noon, the Inquirer ran a follow-up. Professor's fight grows, whispers of judicial bribes. X flared. Hashtag Crane, corrupt trending, clips of Evelyn's calm defiance looping. Crane struck back. A process server banged Evelyn's door, lawsuit, defamation, $1 million. Tara's office got a tip, Voss raiding Ellis's old apartment. Empty now. Dan's clerk found a note slipped under his door. "You're next, Judge." The trio met at Tara's, rain drumming, the USB playing, Crane's growl. "Fix it, Jimmy. 50K's yours." Evelyn's eyes glinted. "He's done. Take it public." Next day, Tara filed with the DA, bribery, obstruction, RICO, and Dan's oversight board called Crane in. The courthouse buzzed, reporters swarming as Crane stormed courtroom 1, robe flapping, face red. "Lies!" he bellowed, but the USB played, his voice damning. Evelyn sat in the gallery, purse in lap, Tara and Dan flanking, her students, her steel. The board chair, a stern woman, cut in. "You're suspended, trial pending." Crane's gavel stayed silent, his empire dust. Courtroom 1 swollen to capacity weeks after Victor Crane's suspension. Every bench groaning under the weight of a packed gallery. Rain lashed the tall windows, streaking the glass with silver threads. But inside, the air crackled with a raw electric hum. Reporters jostled for space, pencils scratching. Activists clutched "Justice Now" signs scrawled in bold marker. TV crews angled cameras through the crowd, their red lights blinking like eyes. Evelyn Brooks sat in the front row, her gray dress pressed crisp despite the muggy heat seeping through the walls. Her faded leather purse resting in her lap like a quiet talisman. At 78, her dark eyes gleamed steady and unyielding. A retired Harvard law professor turned avenger. Tara Miles and Dan Kim flanked her. Tara in her stark DA black, her brown eyes fierce. Dan in his federal judge calm, his gray sweater masking a mind like steel. Her students, now her sharpened blades. Across the room, Judge Victor Crane stood at the defendant's table, his judicial robe stripped away, replaced by a rumpled gray suit that hung loose on his once puffed frame. His bald head shone dull under the courtroom's harsh fluorescent lights, sweat beading on his brow, his scowl a brittle mask stretched thin over a flicker of fear. Judge Maria Delgado presided, 60, her silver hair pulled into a tight bun, her deep brown eyes cutting through the room's clamor as she banged her gavel once, the sound sharp and final. "Order," she said, her voice a steady blade slicing the din. "Commonwealth v. Crane, bribery, obstruction, racketeering, 22 counts total. Prosecution. Begin." The gallery leaned in. A collective breath held as Tara rose. Her folder thick with Paul Ellis's damning haul, ledgers, audio recordings, bank trails painstakingly traced. She stepped forward, heels clicking on the linoleum, and faced Delgado with a voice crisp and unrelenting. "Your Honor, Victor Crane ran a judicial racket for 5 years, pocketing over $2 million in bribes, rigging cases for the powerful, crushing the powerless with fines and dismissals. The evidence is ironclad." His own words, his own signature. She clicked a remote, and Crane's growl filled the room, rough and unmistakable from the USB recording. "Fix it, Jimmy. 50K's yours." The gallery erupted, gasps rippling like a wave. A reporter in a wrinkled blazer muttering, "Got him cold," his pen flying across his pad. Crane's lawyer, a slick man named Hargrove with a tailored suit and an oily drawl, rose to his feet, adjusting his tie with a practiced smirk. "This is noise, Your Honor. Nothing but a disgruntled clerk's revenge. Old grudges dressed up as fact. No proof ties my client directly to these so-called bribes." His voice oozed confidence, but his eyes flicked nervously to the jury. 12 faces, a mix of ages and shades, watching stone still. Tara didn't blink, sliding a stack of ledgers across the table to the clerk, her tone cutting sharper. "No proof? Here's his signature, Victor Crane's initials, VC, on a $200,000 payout to First Philly Holdings, a shell company linked to condo kingpin Mark Brantley. His deals, cash for condos, fines for control, are right here, page after page." Delgado leaned forward, her glasses catching the light as she nodded to the clerk, a wiry woman who stamped the documents with a trembling hand. "Admitted into evidence," Delgado said, her voice flat but firm, and the gallery rustled, a low murmur of "she's got it" from a woman in the third row. Paul Ellis took the stand next, sworn in with a shaky hand on the Bible, his glasses fogged with nerves, his thin frame hunched in a too-big jacket. His voice trembled, but held as he faced Tara's steady gaze. "I was Crane's clerk 5 years. I logged it all, his orders, his meetings with Lieutenant Jimmy Voss, with Brantley. He took $100,000 cash to kill a bodega eviction case in 23, threatened me silent if I talked. Hargrove pounced, leaning in close, his smirk twisting. You're broke, Ellis. Drowning in debt from that divorce. Selling lies for a cushy deal with the DA, right? Ellis swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing, but his voice steadied. I've got tapes. His voice, his rules. I kept them 'cause I knew he'd turn on me. Tara clicked the remote again, and the USB played. Crane's snarl. Make it disappear. 75K. Voss's grunt in reply, silencing the room like a thunderclap. Crane shifted in his seat, fists clenched on the table. His lawyer paling. Sweat beading on Hargrove's brow as the jury's eyes bored into them. Evelyn testified next, rising slow and deliberate, sworn in with a hand steady as stone. She faced Delgado, her calm a storm's eye in the courtroom swirl, her voice clear and resonant, honed by decades at Harvard. He fined me $100 for a parking ticket I didn't owe, ignored my evidence, receipts from Pat's Diner, a witness, Henry Cole, who saw my car blocks away. It's his pattern, power over proof, arrogance over law. I taught civil procedure 33 years, his court breaks every rule I know. Delgado leaned in, peering over her glasses. You're certain of this pattern, Professor Brooks? Evelyn's gaze locked, unflinching. I've seen corruption. I know it when it stares me down. The gallery murmured, a woman in a red scarf whispering, she's steel. A reporter scribbling, legend. Crane glared, his knuckles whitening, but his scowl twitched, a crack showing. The trial stretched 3 days, evidence piling, bank trails to Brantley, Voss's logged calls, a dozen cases flipped for cash. Closing arguments came fast and fierce. Tara stood tall, facing the jury, her voice a rising tide. Victor Crane sold justice like a street vendor. Every bribe, every fine. Evidence proves it beyond doubt. He's guilty. All counts. Hargrove countered, his drawl thinning. This is circumstantial, flimsy, a witch hunt on a good man's name. The jury filed out, the room taut as a wire, reporters whispering odds, activists clutching hands. Crane sat rigid, sweat streaking his suit, his lawyer muttering, they'll cave. 3 hours dragged. Coffee cups littered the gallery. A bailiff paced. Evelyn sat still, purse clasped. Tara and Dan beside her, silent but sure. The jury returned, faces grim. The foreman, a stout man with a buzz cut, standing stiff. We find the defendant, Victor Crane, guilty. All 22 counts. A beat. Then Delgado's gavel cracked like a gunshot. Victor Crane, 15 years, no parole, judicial license revoked, effective now. The gallery exploded. Cheers, shouts, a woman crying, yes! Crane bolted up, face purple, roaring, this is a sham, a damn sham! But cuffs clicked, deputies hauling him out, his scowl crumbling to ash as cameras flashed, his thick frame shrinking with each step. Outside, Philly roared. Crowds swelled on Market Street, rain soaking their chants. Evelyn! Evelyn! Tara hugged her tight. Dan grinned wide, his calm breaking into pride. The Enquirer hit stands next morning. Judge jailed, professors win Sparks reform calls. X blazed. Hashtag Crane down, trending nationwide. Posts demanding audits from Pittsburgh to Miami. Oversight board scrambled. Philly courts scrubbed top to bottom. A bill floated in Harrisburg. Brooks Act, tightening judge oversight, citing Evelyn's case as spark. She stood on the courthouse steps, rain cool on her face, voice firm to the mics. This is a start. Justice bends back slow, but it bends. Keep pushing. Days later, her row house phone rang. Activists, young and urgent. Professor, speak for us. Lead us. She paused, tea steaming in her chipped mug, considering. That night, a brick crashed her window, glass shattering across her rug. A note taped. You'll pay. Watch your back. She swept it up, calm. The fight still alive in her bones. Mobile's Bay gleamed in her mind, a visit planned. Roots calling her south to rest, reflect. Change stirred. Schools taught her story. A DA in Chicago cited her win. But shadows lingered. Crane's allies, quiet now, plotting in corners, a whispered call Voss made from a burner. She's not done. Evelyn smiled, faint, gazing out at Philly's wet streets, the tide unfinished, her purse still packed with purpose. Thank you all for watching this video. Please comment and let me know what you think about this story. Please like and subscribe to watch more great content on my channel.